My wife slept with her boss and stole $250, $0 from our joint account, then convinced my best friend to lie in court. Now we're fighting over the house, and I just found out she's been planning to leave me for her lawyer. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating on him, especially not in such a brutal way. It was like a bad movie, only it was real life, and the worst part is, I found out because I accidentally stumbled across her lies. I still remember the moment I realized something was off, how her phone buzzed late at night and she quickly swiped it away, her face suddenly tense and defensive. That was the first sign. She'd always been a little bitchy when cornered, but this was different. Something was definitely wrong. Her name's Jessica and I'm Mike. We've been married for 5 years, together for almost 8. We had a decent life. She worked in marketing. I had a decent job in finance. Money was tight sometimes, but we managed. Or so I thought. Jessica had always been a bit of a drama queen, quick to snap, quick to lie when it suited her. But I never imagined she'd go as far as to cheat on me, steal from our joint account, and then try to lie her way out of it all. It started a few months ago. Small things, missed calls, late nights, her being unusually secretive about her phone. I'd catch her deleting messages, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just stressed about work or something. But then I noticed the bank account activity. Large withdrawals, $20, zero here, $50, $0 there, disappearing without explanation. I asked her about it and she said it was investments or some big deal she was working on. She always had an excuse, but I knew enough about money to realize she was lying. One night I decided to check the joint account when she was out. I wasn't snooping, just trying to get a grip on what was happening. That's when I saw it. An electronic transfer of $250, $0 gone, just like that. My head spun. I had no idea where it went, but I knew it was a lot of money, our savings, our security, everything we'd worked for. I felt sick. How could she do this? Why? I immediately started digging into her phone, her email, her social media. I found messages, flirty, inappropriate, between her and her boss, a guy named Richard. It was obvious they'd been sleeping together, and not just once. I saw pictures, texts, plans to meet up. She lied about working late, about being busy. She'd been planning this for months, I think. All the while scheming to steal money to cover her tracks. I was furious, but mostly confused. How could she betray me like this? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? Then I found out she convinced my best friend, Tom, to lie in court during our divorce proceedings. She told him to say I was an unfit father, that I'd been abusive, stuff that wasn't true. Tom's a good guy, but he's also a total pushover. She played him like a fiddle. That was the moment I realized how deep her deception went. She wasn't just cheating. She was orchestrating a full-blown attack on me, using everyone around her. And all I could do was stand there, stunned, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. It's hard to describe the moment I found out the truth. The betrayal cut so deep. I felt my world collapsing. All those years, all the plans we made, suddenly meaningless. The money, the trust, the love, everything was gone, replaced by her lies and manipulation. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was hurt. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our marriage, everything we built over a simple desire for greed, sex, and maybe a bit of revenge? I still can't quite believe it, but I knew one thing: I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without a fight. After I pieced everything together, I knew I couldn't just sit back and pretend it was all a bad dream. She was planning to leave me, probably with Richard and the money, and I had to act fast. I started collecting every piece of evidence I could find: screenshots of her messages, bank statements, emails, even recordings of her calls when I could get them. I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything, especially not while I was left in the dark, broken and betrayed. The first real confrontation happened a week later. I waited until she got home from her business trip, which I now knew was a lie. She'd been gone for 2 days, claiming she was at some conference. I'd already checked her phone and saw she'd been texting Richard constantly, planning their escape. I was furious. When she walked through the door, I was waiting in the living room, papers spread out on the table, her phone in my hand. "Jessica," I said, voice trembling with rage. We need to talk. I know everything. The money, the affair, the lies. You've been cheating, stealing from us, and using Tom to lie in court. How could you do this? She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was in control. Mike, she said, rolling her eyes, you're overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about. This is all a misunderstanding. I'm tired of your accusations. You're just jealous because… Jealous, I cut her off. Don't even try that. I've seen the messages, Jessica. You slept with Richard and you stole $250,000 from our account. You lied to everyone, including Tom. How could you be so damn selfish? Her face twisted into a sneer. You're crazy. You're imagining things. All I've ever done is try to fix our life. You're just insecure. And Tom, he's a good guy. He's just trying to help me, unlike you, who's been distant and cold lately. I couldn't believe her lies. She was trying to spin it like I was the bad guy. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the evidence I'd collected, screenshots of her messages with Richard, bank statements showing the withdrawals, her emails trying to cover her tracks. I threw them on the table. You see this? This is real, Jessica. You've been planning this for months. You're leaving me with nothing, and I swear I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done. She scoffed, crossing her arms. You're just jealous because I don't want to be with a loser like you anymore. Richard makes me happy. You're just jealous because you're afraid to admit you're not enough for me. That was the moment I realized she was beyond reason. Her arrogance, her manipulative attitude, it all made me sick. I felt my stomach turn, my hands trembling. I'd never been so angry, so betrayed. I wanted to scream, but instead I just looked at her and said, "You're not leaving me with a dime. I've already contacted a lawyer and I'm taking everything back." Her eyes widened just slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Go ahead. Do whatever you want. You're nothing without me, Mike. You're a failure, and soon everyone will see that." I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her run off with the money or destroy my reputation. The plan was to get a lawyer, freeze the accounts, and start building a case. But I also knew I had to confront her about her plans to leave me for Richard, and how she was planning to take the house, our home, as her new life. I had no idea how deep her scheming went, but one thing was clear. I was going to fight her for everything she thought she could take. That night I stayed up late, going over everything again and again. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a way to turn this around. I was hurt, furious, and tired of being played for a fool. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her all these years, only to find out she'd been lying to my face the entire time. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning I woke up with a pounding headache and a sinking feeling deep in my gut. I'd made up my mind. I was going to take control of this mess, no matter how ugly it got. First step: meet with a divorce lawyer. I needed someone who could help me get the evidence I had gathered officially on record, freeze the accounts, and start the process of protecting what was left of my assets. I found a lawyer who specialized in high-net-worth divorces and financial crimes. His name's David, and he's a no-nonsense guy in his late 50s. We sat in his office for hours, going over everything I had: screenshots, bank statements, her emails, her texts. It was a lot, but he took it all in stride. His first words: "Jessica's actions are serious. Stealing that amount of money and orchestrating lies in court could land her in serious legal trouble. We'll do everything to protect your interests, but you need to be prepared for a fight." While I was with David, I realized I had to get a court order to freeze the accounts immediately. Jessica had already been transferring money into offshore accounts, I suspected, and I didn't want her to drain everything before I could stop her. I also asked about the house. We owned it jointly, but she was already talking to her lawyer about transferring ownership to herself. I couldn't let that happen. Back at home, I started making calls: banking institutions, the court, even Jessica's lawyer. I told her lawyer I was filing for an emergency injunction to prevent her from transferring or selling the house. The more I dug, the more I realized she'd been planning this for months. She'd even opened a new account in her name alone, trying to hide the money she'd stolen. Meanwhile, Jessica kept up her act, calling me every hour, trying to guilt-trip me, claiming she was doing this for us, that I was overreacting, that I was controlling. She would cry, scream, call me names, then turn around and act sweet again. It was exhausting. I saw right through her manipulations. She was trying to keep me off balance, hopping. I'd back down, but I wasn't falling for it. One evening I caught her in a lie. She told me she was at her lawyer's office working out the details of our divorce, but I found her on her phone messaging Richard plans to meet him later that night. When I confronted her, she looked surprised, then furious. "You're just paranoid," she snapped. "You've always been insecure. I don't have to explain myself to you." That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, the lies. I told her I'd be fighting for everything: our house, the money, custody of the kids if we had any. She just sneered and said I was jealous and insecure, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knew I was serious. Over the next few days, the chaos only grew. I managed to get the court to issue an emergency order, freezing her accounts, halting any transfer of the house, and requiring her to turn over her phone and emails for review. Jessica was furious, calling it unfair, illegal, and a violation of her rights. But I knew the law was on my side. I had all the proof I needed. The most surprising thing was her reaction when I told her I was planning to confront her directly about her plans to leave me for Richard and take the house. She denied everything, said Richard was just a business associate, that she never cheated, never stole money. She tried to spin it like I was just jealous, insecure, and imagining things, but I knew better. I had proof and I wasn't backing down. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her cheating, her betrayal. I felt numb, angry, and betrayed all at once. I thought about what I'd lost: the trust, the stability, the future we'd planned. But I also knew one thing: I was done being a victim. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, and I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, no matter how ugly it got. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings, phone calls, and frantic planning. Jessica, of course, was doing her best to spin her web of lies, but I had enough evidence now to blow her entire story apart. The court orders were in place, and I was starting to see the cracks in her carefully constructed facade. Still, she kept up the act, acting innocent, claiming I was trying to ruin her, accusing me of paranoia, all while secretly plotting her next move. One morning, I got a call from David. He told me Jessica had hired her own lawyer, another slick guy named Marcus, who was already pushing to get her the house and access to the money. It was clear she was trying to outmaneuver me, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I knew her game: stall, lie, manipulate, and hope I'd back down. But I was done playing her game. That same day, I found out she'd been meeting with Richard more often than I thought. I'd seen her texts: flirty, suggestive, talking about future plans. I also discovered she'd been secretly withdrawing more money, trying to hide it in offshore accounts. She'd even contacted a lawyer herself, outlining her plans to leave me, take the house, and start over with Richard in some new city. The betrayal hit me like a punch in the stomach. I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face. I waited until she was alone at home, then I called her out. "Jessica, I know what you're planning. I've seen the messages, the withdrawals. You're trying to leave me with nothing, aren't you?" I kept my voice steady but cold. I had no patience for her lies anymore. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to brush it off. "Mike, you're overreacting. You don't have any proof. You're just jealous because I want a better life. Richard makes me happy, and I'm sick of pretending you're some kind of perfect husband. You're controlling, insecure, and honestly, you're just not enough for me anymore." I couldn't believe how she was spinning her lies, how she was trying to make me doubt myself. But I had enough. I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence: screenshots of her texts with Richard, bank statements, her emails trying to cover her tracks. I told her, "This is what I have. And I'm going to make sure the court knows everything. You're not leaving me with a damn thing." Her eyes flickered with anger, but also a hint of panic. "You think you can scare me? I'll just lie, cheat, and get what I want. You're nobody, Mike. You're just a failure." That's when I realized her game was desperation. She was trying to cling to her lies, but I wasn't going to let her win. I'd already contacted the court, filed for a final hearing, and was preparing to fight her for custody, the house, and the money. I told her I'd see her in court, and she could try all she wanted to manipulate the system. But I had the truth on my side now. I spent the next few days organizing everything, making sure all the paperwork was in order, preparing my witness statements, and getting ready for the inevitable court battle. Jessica's lawyer was already trying to spin things in her favor, claiming she was the victim. But I knew the truth. She'd been lying, stealing, and planning her escape for months, and I was determined to stop her. The most surprising part: I also found out she'd been secretly planning to leave me entirely. She'd told her lawyer she wanted to move out of state with Richard, start a new life, and leave everything behind. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. How could she be so cold, so calculating? I'd trusted her for years, only to find out she'd been planning her escape while I was clueless. Now I was ready to fight for what was mine: my house, my money, my dignity. I knew she'd try to smear me, to paint me as the bad guy, but I didn't care. I had the proof, and I was going to use it. I was tired of being the victim. It was time to take control. The betrayal was still fresh, but I was determined to come out of this stronger. I had to. The court date finally arrived after what felt like an eternity of preparation. I was a nervous wreck, but I knew I had to stay strong. Jessica showed up with her slick lawyer Marcus, looking confident, probably thinking she had everything lined up. She kept trying to throw her usual tantrums, accusing me of trying to ruin her, calling me possessive and paranoid. But I had everything documented. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every secret meeting with Richard. David, my lawyer, laid out the case with precision. He presented the bank statements, the texts, the emails, all pointing to her deception. I could see Jessica's face tighten as the evidence was revealed. She kept denying everything, but her tone was shaky, her defenses crumbling. She even tried to claim the money was a gift from her boss, Richard, which was a blatant lie. Richard's name never came up in any legal documents. She was trying to spin her web even tighter. When it came time for her to testify, she tried to play the victim. She said she only cheated because I was absent, that I was cold, that she was stressed and desperate. Her lawyer whispered into her ear, probably telling her to keep the tears coming. But I just sat there listening, feeling the anger simmering beneath my skin. I knew her game. She was trying to manipulate the court, but I had the proof. Then I took the stand. I told the judge everything: how I discovered her affair, the stolen money, her plans to leave me for Richard, and her lies in court. I explained how her actions had devastated me, how I'd been blindsided by her betrayal. I kept my voice calm but firm, making sure every word counted. I knew this wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about justice, about putting an end to her manipulations. The judge listened carefully. After hours of testimony, he finally made his ruling. He ordered Jessica to return the stolen money, pay damages, and stay away from the house until the final divorce settlement. The house was awarded to me, and Jessica was ordered to pay legal costs. She looked furious, but there was nothing she could do now. Her lies had been exposed and her plans had been thwarted. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Jessica tried to appeal, but her lawyer's attempts were futile. I moved out of the house, took back what was mine, and started rebuilding my life. I kept the evidence, just in case she tried anything sneaky again. I also told my friends and family everything, so they knew the truth. It was a difficult process, but I felt a strange sense of relief. Justice had been served, and I was finally free from her web of lies. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that you can't let someone destroy you with lies and deception. You have to stand up, fight back, and protect what's yours. Jessica thought she could get away with everything: stealing, cheating, lying, and I almost let her. But in the end, truth and persistence won. And I'm left with the painful but necessary lesson that sometimes the only way to move forward is to fight for yourself. Now that everything's settled, I've had some time to reflect on what this whole ordeal taught me. Honestly, it's been a brutal journey, one I wouldn't wish on anyone. But looking back, I realize I've come out of it stronger, more cautious, and with a clearer sense of what I want, what I truly deserve. Jessica's betrayal tore me apart at first, but I didn't let it define me. Instead, I used it as a wake-up call. One thing I've learned is that trust is fragile. It's easy to believe in someone, especially someone you've shared your life with, but betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. The key is to stay vigilant, to look beyond the surface, and never ignore those small warning signs. I thought I knew Jessica, but her actions proved otherwise. It's a painful lesson, but one I'll carry with me forever. Another thing is the importance of standing up for yourself. I could have crumbled under the weight of her lies or let her manipulate me into giving her what she wanted. But I didn't. I fought back with everything I had: legal help, evidence, determination. And in the end, that's what made the difference. If you're ever in a similar situation, don't be afraid to stand your ground, even when it feels like the world is against you. Money, I've realized, is a powerful tool, whether for good or bad. Jessica's greed drove her to steal, cheat, and manipulate her way through life. It's a reminder that money can corrupt, but it can also be your shield. Protect what's yours, keep good records, and never let anyone take advantage of your trust or your assets without a fight. Finally, I've learned that forgiveness isn't always about forgetting or excusing what happened. It's about accepting what's done, learning from it, and moving forward. Jessica's actions hurt deeply, but I refuse to carry that pain forever. I've chosen to let go of the anger and focus on rebuilding my life. I still have scars, but they're part of who I am now, a survivor. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, I want you to know this: you're stronger than you think. Don't let betrayal define you. Reach out for help, gather your evidence, and fight for what's rightfully yours. It's not easy, and the road will be long, but in the end, truth and justice will prevail. I hope my story serves as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's a way out, and that way is through standing tall and never giving up.